Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a look at Conner the Animator Guy 2K7 and some of the claims and controversies surrounding him. I've collected screenshots, video clips, and other pieces of evidence that I'll be going throughout this video. Instead of simply making accusations, I'm going to show the evidence and explain what each piece is supposed to demonstrate. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and buckle up, because we've got quite a bit to go through. This is part 1, and we're just getting started. Let's get into the evidence. Alright, now we're getting into the screenshots. Screenshot number 1. This screenshot appears to show Conner admitting that, back in July 2025, he yelled at another user and said his actions contributed to that person experiencing a serious emotional crisis. He describes it as something he did accidentally. But here's the issue. Regardless of whether something was intentional or accidental, yelling at someone and causing them serious emotional distress is something that should be taken seriously. Calling it an accident doesn't automatically erase the consequences. Screenshot number 2. This one contains an admission involving a minor and behavior that he himself describes as grooming. Again, he calls it an accident. And that raises a serious question. How can something involving inappropriate behavior toward a minor simply be dismissed as an accident? Intent and context matter. And this is exactly why the evidence needs to be examined carefully rather than brushed aside. Screenshot number 3. This screenshot discusses inappropriate content that he says he generated using ChatGPT involving fictional characters. He again describes the behavior as accidental or something he kind of did. And that wording is definitely worth questioning. If someone is acknowledging that they created inappropriate content, saying they kind of did it doesn't really explain what happened. Either the content was created or it wasn't. So, those are the 3 screenshots I wanted to cover for this section. I'm not asking you to blindly believe me. Look at the screenshots, consider what they actually say, and make your own judgment. And with that, we're moving on to the next piece of evidence. Alright, moving on to part 3 because now we have an actual video clip to look at. This video is interesting because Conner apparently labels or describes the video as not a drama post. And at first, you might think, okay, if it isn't a drama post, then maybe it's just some normal commentary or discussion. But then we actually look at the content. The video is talking about other people, and there is hostile and insulting language being used toward someone. There are also comments about drag queens and other people that make the situation sound a lot more confrontational than the simple label, not a drama post, would suggest. So here's where I have a problem with the claim. You can't just put a label on something and expect everyone to ignore what's actually inside the video. If the content is criticizing other people, using insults, responding to an ongoing disagreement, or attacking someone verbally, then viewers can reasonably question whether calling it not drama is accurate. And that's exactly what we're doing here, questioning the claim based on the content of the video. I'm not saying that every single criticism of another person automatically qualifies as drama. There's obviously a difference between calmly discussing something and deliberately starting a fight. But if you're making a video about another person while using hostile language toward them, then the audience has every right to ask, what exactly is this supposed to be? And there's another important point here. The title, description, or disclaimer of a video doesn't necessarily tell us what the video actually contains. If someone says, this isn't drama, but the footage itself contains behavior that looks like a personal confrontation, that's a contradiction worth pointing out. So let's actually pay attention to the footage instead of just taking the label at face value.
Back in 2025, at that time when 2025 already started, there was lots of dramas happening on YouTube, Discord, Instagram, and especially to users on the live streams on StreamYard, or even Restream, for short if I don't know. Honestly, I never used to do StreamYard on my main channel to begin with at all because I don't have verification phone number to do that at all, but thank God that someone already quit doing StreamYards because of all of the toxic dramas happening in the community, especially to the fact some random user showing there, you know what, inside a live stream that some other user had to redo the live stream because of those raiders, or even the stranger showed there, you know what, inside a live stream, or even in the comments/live chat if I'm correct on that.
And also, to be completely honest with you guys, this community is still getting fucking toxic, bland, and boring nowadays since there were lots of traitors in the Vian Dollar Go Animate community since we keep on losing our friends and fans such as Mia, from MS Animate Life, DanaTube, it's Conner the Epic Gamer, Mark MJ, it's K the Epic Gamer, it's Cubes World, Galaxy Fod 12, Austin the Superior Viander 2021, Pac-Man Neon, Ruby Rockstar, and all of the other users who are a bunch of traitors in the Viant and Go Animate community. Like, why can't you just act like your damn normal age without being immature about it for crying out loud? It's such a simple thing, act more immature rather than to start crying about it and being a whiny bitch all days ever. I can't believe that the 2025 year is getting much more worse in this community to the fact that I'm about to quit Viand and YouTube forever because of that toxic drama happening last year in 2025 where they became a bunch of massive traitors in the Viand and Go Animate community.
Especially due to the fact that some other users still takes trolls and their haters way to the extreme and way too seriously when they could just move on from them and ignore them. Like seriously, why can't you just understand that, huh? It's still getting much worse in the Beyond and Go Anime community due to the fact that I now have trusted issues because of that. Those users and their haters are just getting us sick in our heads to the point that we all might throw up because of that. Like, God, these people need to stop this bullshit drama from happening and start moving on to something important and more good stuffs for fuck's sakes. This is why that me, Connor, and Carrie have trusted issues now because of those traitors doing more toxic dramas in this community. But
As you can see from the clip, there is language being used that can reasonably be interpreted as hostile or insulting toward another person. That's why I'm including the actual footage instead of just telling you what happened. And I'm going to make one thing clear. You should watch the evidence yourself. I'm presenting what the clip appears to show, and you can decide whether you think the not a drama post claim holds up. Because if you're going to make a post about a conflict, talk about other people, and use aggressive language toward them, simply saying, "This isn't drama," doesn't automatically settle the question. That's the main point of this section. We now have the screenshots from part 2, and we have video evidence for part 3. We're building this case piece by piece, and there is still more evidence to go through. So that's it for this clip. Part 3 is done. Let's move on to the next piece of evidence. Alright, now we've got another post from Connor, and this one gives us something else to examine. The post starts off with him saying that his past doesn't deserve to be brought up and calling the people bringing it up bozos. Then he tells people to leave him alone and stop ranting about him. But the biggest part of this post is his response to the accusation being made against him. He denies being a pedophile and says that what happened was an accident. Now let's stop right there. A denial is a denial. Just because someone says, "I'm not that," doesn't automatically prove either side of the argument. What matters is whether there is reliable evidence supporting the accusation or contradicting it. And that's why the previous screenshots are relevant to this video. We're not bringing up somebody's past completely out of nowhere. We're examining statements and material that have been presented as evidence of previous behavior. There's also an important distinction between "this happened accidentally" and "this never happened." Those are two completely different claims. If the underlying event actually happened, then calling it an accident doesn't make the event disappear. At the same time, we shouldn't automatically assume that an accusation is proven simply because someone made it. So when Connor says, essentially, "It was an accident and that's the truth," that's a claim that needs to be considered alongside the evidence. And then there's the language being used in this post, calling people bozos, telling them to leave him alone, and using profanity shows that this isn't exactly a calm response to the controversy. You can disagree with people criticizing you. You can deny allegations against you. You can even ask people to stop talking about you. But when you're responding to serious accusations, the strongest way to defend yourself is to address the actual evidence and explain what happened. That's what we're looking at here. So, to summarize part 4, 1. Connor says his past shouldn't be brought up. 2. He tells people to leave him alone and stop ranting about him. 3. He strongly denies the accusation against him. 4. He says the incident was an accident. And 5. The screenshot itself establishes that he made those statements, but it does not by itself prove whether his explanation or the opposing accusation is true. That's why we're going to keep looking at the evidence instead of jumping to conclusions. And that's part 4. We've got more evidence to examine, so let's continue. Alright, part 5, and now we have another post from Connor. This one starts with him saying that he already made an apology post and asking people to basically ignore him and move on instead of continuing to criticize him. Now, this is interesting because it confirms something important. There was an apology post. So this isn't simply a situation where nobody ever responded to the criticism. According to his own post, he had already made an apology and was now asking people to stop bringing the subject up. He then says that he isn't leaving the internet forever and that he isn't going to get arrested by the police right now. And that's another part that definitely stands out. Why mention police or getting arrested in a post where you're asking people to move on? Now, to be fair, mentioning something doesn't automatically prove that a crime happened. We shouldn't take one sentence and turn it into a verdict. But it does raise questions. If someone is already dealing with criticism about their past, then posts about apologies, people criticizing them, leaving the internet, and even the possibility of police involvement are obviously going to attract attention. Then he finishes by telling his critics to mind their own business and essentially ends the post. So let's break down what we can actually establish from this screenshot. Number 1, he says he made an apology post. Number 2, he says people continue criticizing or embarrassing him. Number 3, he says he isn't leaving the internet. Number 4, he brings up the subject of getting arrested by police. Number 5, he tells his critics to mind their own business. Does this screenshot alone prove that every accusation against him is true? No. But does it give us additional context about how he responded to the controversy? Absolutely. And that's what this video is supposed to be about. Putting the statements and evidence together and letting viewers examine the bigger picture. So I'm not going to say, this screenshot proves he's guilty. Instead, I'm going to say, this is another piece of evidence that deserves to be considered alongside everything else we've already shown. And with that, part 5 is wrapped up. We've got more to look at, so let's keep going. Part 6, and this screenshot is definitely another interesting one. Here, Conner starts by saying that he's not a threat to society, while also calling the people criticizing him bozos. But then the post gets much more aggressive. He specifically responds to an accusation that he was yelling at minors. He denies treating minors badly and says that he doesn't lash out at minors. Now, once again, we have to separate what he claims from what the available evidence actually establishes. This screenshot clearly shows that he's responding to accusations involving his behavior toward younger users. It also shows that he's very frustrated with the people making those accusations. And then we get a huge amount of profanity and repeated demands for people to leave him alone. So let's look at the bigger picture. Earlier, we saw posts where Conner talked about his past, an apology, criticism from other users, and wanting people to stop bringing the controversy up. Now we have another post where he's directly defending himself against accusations involving minors. That makes this screenshot relevant because it gives us his side of the story. However, his denial doesn't automatically prove that the accusations are true, and it doesn't automatically prove that they're false either. To determine that, we'd need to examine the original incidents and any independent evidence connected to them. There's also something else worth pointing out. If you're trying to convince people that an accusation is false, simply getting angry at the people making the accusation isn't necessarily going to settle the issue. A stronger response would be to calmly explain what happened, provide context, and address the specific evidence. Instead, this post spends a lot of time insulting the critics and telling them to leave him alone. So what can we take from this screenshot? Number 1. Conner denies being a threat to society. Number 2. He denies mistreating or lashing out at minors. Number 3. He directly addresses accusations made by other users. Number 4. The post contains a large amount of profanity and hostile language toward his critics. And number 5. The screenshot gives us his response, but by itself it doesn't establish whether the underlying accusations are true. That's an important distinction, because we're here to examine evidence, not hand out a verdict based on one screenshot. So, Part 6 gives us another look at how Conner responds when people bring up controversial claims about his past. And we've still got more evidence to go through. Part 6 is complete. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, Part 7, and this time we have something a little different. Instead of another old screenshot, we have posts showing Conner reacting to an exposure video made by another YouTube user, Sputter. And honestly, the reaction is what makes this interesting. In these screenshots, Conner is clearly very frustrated about people continuing to discuss his past. He repeatedly tells his critics to leave him alone, calls them names, and uses a lot of profanity. He also complains about people trying to cancel his main channel and says that they're trolling and cyberbullying him. Now, here's where we need to be careful. Does being angry automatically prove that someone is guilty? No. Someone can become angry because they believe they're being unfairly accused. So the anger itself isn't proof that the allegations are true. But it is evidence of how he is responding to the criticism. And that's what we're documenting here. What's particularly noticeable is that while he's telling everyone to move on, He's also continuing to discuss the controversy himself. He repeatedly explains his position, denies some accusations, and says that one of the incidents was an accident. He also says that he's trying to improve his behavior and that he made what he describes as a genuine apology. So we have two sides of the reaction happening at the same time. On one side, he's saying, "Leave me alone, move on, stop talking about my past." On the other side, he's continuing to address the accusations and explain his side of the story. And that's why this post is worth showing. Look at the language being used here. The post is extremely emotional and contains a lot of profanity and insults directed toward the people criticizing him. Again, I'm not going to claim that this screenshot magically proves every accusation against him. It doesn't. What it does show is that Conner became highly upset about the exposure video and the continued criticism surrounding his past. And there's another important detail. He says he's trying to improve his behavior by making what he describes as a real apology. That means the apology itself is now part of the story too. So at this point, we've seen Part 1. The introduction and what we're investigating. Part 2. Screenshots containing various admissions and claims. Part 3. The Not a Drama post video. Part 4. A post where he argues that his past shouldn't be brought up. Part 5. Another post discussing his apology and asking critics to move on. Part 6. Another angry response defending himself. And now Part 7. We see his reaction to an actual exposure video about him. The pattern here is worth examining, but I'm going to let the evidence speak for itself rather than declare that someone's emotional reaction proves guilt. Part 8. The voice video and handling criticism. Alright, Part 8. Now we have a video from Conner's second Vine-related channel where he talks about himself and his voice. And this clip is interesting because of how strongly he reacts to criticism about something as simple as his voice. In the video, he becomes emotional while talking about people saying negative things about his voice. He says that if people criticize his voice, it would make him sad and that it would break his heart. Now, there's nothing wrong with someone not enjoying criticism. Everyone can have feelings about what people say about them. But then he says something else. If people make negative comments about his voice, he will block them with no second chances. And that's where this clip becomes relevant to the larger discussion.
But however, please do not say mean stuff about my real live voice, because if you do, that will break my heart when you do that. Oh, just like other user just said, if I see any negative comments about my real live voice or any others, I will automatically block you from my channel with no second chances at all. And I mean it this time.
As you can see from the clip, Conner is clearly expressing how upset he would become over negative comments about his voice, while also saying that people who make those comments could be blocked without a second chance. And that's the point I'm making with this evidence. The clip shows that when it comes specifically to criticism about his voice, he appears to have a very difficult time handling negative comments. Again, there's an important distinction here. If somebody is genuinely harassing him or repeatedly insulting him, blocking them is understandable. But ordinary criticism and harassment aren't automatically the same thing. So what does this particular clip establish? It shows that Conner has openly talked about being hurt by criticism of his voice, and he says that people who criticize it can be blocked without a second chance. Part 9. The Conner fanbrats. Alright, Part 9, and now we have to talk about the people who are jumping in to defend Conner. And honestly, some of these defenses are ridiculous. First up, we have Brian the preschool show guy, who basically tells everyone to leave Conner alone. Seriously? After everything we've already gone through in this video, that's your response? Leave Conner alone. That doesn't address the screenshots. It doesn't address the videos. It doesn't explain the statements we've already shown. It doesn't disprove anything. It just tells the critics to stop talking. And that's not a defense. That's just telling people to shut up. Then we have Isaiah Moses 9101, who tells people not to listen to the critics. Again, where's the actual argument? If you think the evidence is wrong, explain why it's wrong. If something is taken out of context, show the missing context. If there's evidence disproving an accusation, present it. But simply saying, "Don't listen to him," isn't going to magically make the evidence disappear. And then we have Reporter Channel, who makes a post saying that Conner doesn't deserve to be hated and deserves to be loved. And this is where I have to ask, are you actually looking at the evidence we're discussing? Because this isn't about whether someone is popular or unpopular. It's about behavior and accountability. If someone is accused of seriously inappropriate behavior, you don't get to erase the entire discussion by saying, "He deserves to be loved." That's completely beside the point. We're not here to hand out friendship bracelets. We're examining what someone allegedly did, what they admitted to, what they posted, and how they responded when people confronted them. And that's what these supporters keep failing to address. They aren't disproving the evidence. They're defending Conner. They're telling people to leave him alone. They're telling people not to listen to critics. They're telling everyone that he deserves love. But where are the explanations? Where are the receipts? Where is the evidence that actually disproves the claims? That's what I want to know. Because if your entire defense is just, "Leave Conner alone," then you're not actually answering the allegations. You're just trying to shut down the discussion. And after everything we've shown so far, I'm not going to pretend these questions don't exist just because some supporters don't like people talking about them. So this is what Part 9 comes down to. The supporters can defend Conner all they want, but defending someone doesn't erase evidence. If the evidence is wrong, prove it wrong. If something is taken out of context, show the context. If there's another side to the story, present it. But don't expect everyone to stop asking questions simply because you told them to. This is an exposé, and we're here to examine the behavior, the statements, the reactions, and the evidence. And we're not stopping just because the fanbase doesn't like it. Part 9 is over. Let's get into the next piece of evidence. Part 10. The fake account claim. Alright, Part 10, and now we're getting into what appears to be another major contradiction. We have a statement from Conner saying, "I don't create fake accounts like Dana, Josh, Adam, and other fake degenerate users here." And he even emphasizes that these are supposedly 100% real, not fake accounts. Okay, Conner, let's look at the evidence. Because right here we have material involving the Dana account that appears to contradict that statement. According to the evidence we're showing, the Dana account makes a statement claiming that the person behind the account is actually Conner. Now let's pause for a second. If the screenshot is authentic and the account really is connected to Conner, then we have a serious contradiction between what Conner said publicly and what this account appears to be admitting. On one side, Conner says, "I don't create fake accounts." On the other side, we have a screenshot that appears to show the Dana account saying that Conner is behind it. Those two claims don't exactly fit together. And that's why this screenshot matters. I'm not going to pretend that one screenshot automatically proves every detail about who operated the account. What it does is create a very specific question. Was Conner actually behind the Dana account despite publicly denying that he creates fake accounts? That's the question the evidence needs to answer. And if the account really was operated by him, then the statement denying involvement becomes extremely difficult to reconcile with the evidence. This is also why I'm showing the actual screenshot instead of simply saying, "Trust me, he made the account." Look at the evidence yourself. If the screenshot is genuine, then we have a direct contradiction that deserves an explanation. And there's another thing I want to make clear. Whatever problems Dana may have had themselves doesn't automatically settle whether Conner was behind the account. Those are separate questions. So let's keep the focus where it belongs. Did Conner create or operate the Dana account after publicly denying that he creates fake accounts? That's what this part of the exposé is investigating. And if his explanation is that the screenshot is fake, edited, taken out of context, or otherwise misleading, then that's something that would need to be demonstrated with evidence. Because simply saying, "I don't make fake accounts" isn't enough if there is evidence appearing to contradict that statement. And that's Part 10. We now have another alleged contradiction to add to the investigation. The claim is on one side. The screenshot is on the other. Now let's examine which one holds up. Before we completely wrap this up, I found two accounts that appear to be connected to Conner. I found a Facebook account and an Instagram account that appear to use information associated with him. I'm not going to reveal private identifying information such as his home location or exact date of birth. That's not necessary for examining the behavior and evidence discussed in this video. Instead, I'm showing the publicly available account information that's relevant to identifying which profiles we're actually talking about. These are the two accounts I found during my research. The important thing is that viewers can distinguish the accounts being discussed from unrelated people with similar names. And that's it for this extra section. We're focusing on the public content and evidence relevant to this exposé, not someone's private personal. Part 11. The final wrap-up. Alright, everyone. We've finally reached the end of this exposé. We've gone through 10 parts of evidence, including screenshots, videos, statements, reactions, alleged contradictions, and posts from people defending Conner. We've looked at the claims surrounding his past, his responses to criticism, the not a drama post controversy, his reactions to exposure videos, the video about criticism of his voice, his supporters defending him, and the alleged fake account contradiction. And throughout this entire video, I've tried to put the evidence directly in front of you. So now, Conner and all of your supporters, if you're watching this, you've been exposed. The screenshots have been shown. The videos have been shown. The statements have been shown. The reactions have been shown. And the contradictions we've found have been pointed out. You can disagree with the video. You can challenge the evidence. You can provide context. But simply saying, "Leave me alone," or telling people not to listen doesn't make the evidence disappear. And to everyone watching, don't just take my word for it. Look at the evidence yourself. Look at the screenshots. Watch the clips. Read the statements. Compare the claims with what was actually posted. Some of the accusations discussed in this video would require additional evidence to establish as fact. So I'm not going to pretend that every screenshot automatically proves everything being alleged. But the statements, reactions, and apparent contradictions we've examined are still there for everyone to evaluate. So, Conner and your supporters, if you're watching this, this is the evidence that was presented. This is the behavior and statements that were examined. And this is why the controversy deserves to be discussed. You don't get to erase criticism simply by telling everyone to stop talking about it. If you believe something in this exposé is wrong, then address the specific evidence and explain why. Until then, the evidence speaks for itself. And that's where we're ending this. Conner the Animator Guy 2K7 and supporters, you've been exposed. Thank you for watching the entire exposé. This is the end.